that we're at war.
Speak about the image of our people. We have to be protective of our image.
Our ancestors, they were oppressed, and we are oppressed today.
Hotel brothers and sisters, I am Ja.
And I am Kev of the Ja and Kev Show.
And today we have a very interesting topic that we must delve into and unpack. The topic today, Brother Kevin, is individualism, what it does to the Black community. Are there pros and cons in it? Or anything that's on your heart when we talk about individualism? Has it helped us as a people? Has it destroyed us? Because I have a totally unique take on this. But I would like to know, starting about individualism, talking about it, what are just some of your thoughts at the outset?
Okay. So what I like to do anytime we talk about a subject or a topic, I want to identify the topic and get clarification on the topic.
Okay.
So when we say individualism, it's like, what exactly do we mean?
Okay.
And the thing with individualism is anytime that you had a suffix ism, that denotes a structure, tradition, or culture, or system.
Okay.
And I think individualism is something that has been imposed and imprinted upon us in this country. We are not a people that come from individualism, societies. We are tribal people.
Okay.
Most people of color around the world are tribal, which we talk about the village.
Okay.
And I think this separates us in the village. This is something that destroys the village image that we are naturally born into.
Wow, that's interesting. That's interesting.
So I want to identify and clarify, because it's different from individuality, which is something that we are known for.
Okay.
As a people, we always try to be individuals. we wear our hats a different way, or we try to come up with different styles and swags and things like that. But individualism is the system and the culture.
Okay.
So
okay.
I want to clarify that.
Yeah,
so,
and I'm
so
glad
let's talk
you did.
about that.
I'm glad you did, because my whole take on it is from the standpoint of, I see individualism from a patriarchal context, ideologically, meaning that Europeans have taught us to more or less try to be more into ourselves, or to acquire wealth and just be ourselves. But I think that's impossible, brother, because when you look at it, you cannot have and talk about individualism without talking about it attached to a culture and a society.
Right.
You cannot have in other words, no one lives in the world by themselves. If you were the only one in the world by yourself, then I can see we say you're an individual. Right. But when you're a person and yet you're part of a group, you're part of a society, you're part of a system, that has to be talked about from the standpoint of, I think we've been duped because we don't look at individualism as opposed to how to make that work within a group. And that's something we definitely have to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. And I like how you said that, because in America and in Western cultures, they thrive on individualism in two different ways. Them themselves, in a capitalistic society, you worried about yourself.
Right.
You're trying to capitalize. If you have insulin and you have that cornered, and they got to pay you for insulin, you're not worried about people dying from it if they can't afford it. You're worried about your wealth. That's individual thing, selfishness. And they thrive on it in another aspect, is because they take advantage of us and as the individuals, because as a group you have no power.
Right.
And it's easier for them to capitalize on us under that system of racism, which is another ism system, and it's structured for us to be at the bottom of the totem pole, and for them to stay at the top. And see, other cultures in America, subcultures in America, they can afford to be individuals.
Right.
But we can't, because they have a protective umbrella. White America has this protective umbrella called racism and white superiority.
Right.
So no matter what, they're going to be above us in a way of looking in this country, economically, education-wise, and whatnot.
Right.
So we, at the bottom of that, we can't afford to try to be like them.
Exactly. That's good.
And because they have that umbrella that's protecting them.
Right.
We have nothing that's protecting us but ourselves. So the individualism is hurting us in that aspect.
Right. It's killing us, because, as you so eloquently stated, when you think about it, individualism is always tied into group dynamics in a social context. In other words, everything that we do, we have to involve some other group of people, whether we go buy a car, buy a house, buy whatever, or clothes. We're giving our resources to a group of people. So while we talk about individualism, we still have to look at the group dynamics. In other words, there are a lot of different types of people. For example, the Asians, they may talk about individualism, but when they go to the bank, on that bank account, it doesn't say individualism. It has their name, their group name. So does Europeans. And I think we as a people, we have not been taught the dangers of it, because no man or no woman is an island into themselves. And until we talk about it and allow people to see, that has to be tied into a group context. It has to be, Brother Kevin. There's no way we can get around that. And I think for the longest, we've been trying to be, as you said, like other people, but they can afford to do that. Because when you look at the wealth in the United States of America, I think it's about 120 something $1 trillion. And we only have about 8. And most of that is already tied into the baby boomers, those people that are, retiring and all of that. So we basically are working off of $2 trillion, but we try other people because no one is teaching this ideology that you cannot look at yourself as an island to yourself where you don't need other people.
Right. And we are the people that need, that's in that predicament.
Yes.
Because we don't have that community that we can fall back on that's going to protect us. I'm going to tell you something that happened to me when I was a younger dude, and I was in California. I was in San Francisco. I was visiting. I was actually in the military in Northern California or Middle California, and I would drive to San Francisco, Oakland, the Bay Area, leisure time. And I got into an accident. And I tell people this opened my eyes to something that happened. I got into an accident and someone rear-ended me at a light. I was in Chinatown.
Okay.
I'm a tourist. I'm in the tourist mode. Guy wasn't paying attention. I'm at a stoplight. He just rammed into my car. And I had an expensive car at that time. I was pissed. I got out, we got out the car. The guy couldn't speak a lick of English, or he was playing like he couldn't. He gave me his insurance, blah, blah, blah. And to go long story short, his insurance was Asian.
Okay.
The lawyer that called me was Asian. So that was letting me know. And at that time, I'm just mad because I'm trying to get things done. And I'm like, I never heard of this insurance company. It's right there in Chinatown. I'm like, the guy calling me, his agent or his lawyer is Asian. Wow. The name is Asian. And I'm talking to him. I hear the accent. And I'm thinking, this person, I'm like, how can you be here in America and you can't speak English? Because he don't have to, because he's in that community. And as I drove through Chinatown, I see a meat market. I see a auto dealership, Asian. I don't see, American types. I see all Asian signs. And they have dry cleaners, Asian. So they have their own communities, their sub-community. So they don't have to venture out if they don't need to.
Exactly. Well, you're right, because they don't, when you look at our community and you look at the businesses in our communities, Asians, they're not going to drive over here to purchase anything from us. A lot of Europeans, they're not going to drive over here to buy anything from us. A lot of those people that come from these different countries, they have a group dynamic mentality, and that's what we have to teach, because individualism is something, the way we've been taught it has ravaged, it has hurt us, because now we're thinking that we are to ourselves. And it's like, we cannot have that attitude. And so we just want to set the record straight today when we talk about individualism.
Yeah. And going back to something I said earlier, I didn't mean the immigrants come here. They look for each other. If you're Puerto Rican and you're coming into San Antonio or Houston, you're going to look for mainly your people. If you're Asian of if Korean, they look for, and even if you look at any town, you're going to go to a section of that town, you're going to start seeing Korean type signs and stuff, or church, things that they need, a restaurant, and we do the opposite. We try to get away as if we're not immigrants, and we're not really immigrants in this country, but we're not firsthand citizens in this country.
That, Kevin. That's true.
That's the thing, that's the dynamic that we have to look at. We try to get away from each other.
Right.
And we take pride in doing something else with
Right.
other people and not doing anything with
But
ourselves.
see, the hoax and the whole thing is like you just mentioned. When we get away, we're really not getting away. We may get away from each other's presence,
Right.
but we're still taking our resources to other people.
Right.
For example, a lot of times when people move out, and I'm all for so-called success, the first thing they're going to tell you when you say, where you live, man, they're going to boast that they live somewhere far
Right.
out. But
Right.
what they're not telling you is where they live, they're giving that note, house note, to someone that doesn't look like them, that's taking that money and utilizing it to oppress him or her and her people. And because we have not been told and taught that we have to plug this so-called individualism into a group, a social context. And until we do that, we're going to continue to have people who have that warped mentality that you spoke
Right.
of, because a lot of us, we think it's success when we leave Black people.
The Jeffersons moving on up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Moving on up to the top.
And to be honest, that's not even real. That's
Right.
not real.
Right.
Because most of us as individuals, we don't have at least $395,000 in the bank, because that's
Right.
supposed to be the lowest level of the African Americans, the Africans living in America, whatever we're calling ourselves these days. But I just think that, Brother Kevin, we have to continue to hammer this thing, because many people, they don't see anything that's wrong with it.
Right. And they haven't been taught that. We've been taught that individualism is the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Think about yourself, do for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
try to make it your way,
Mm-hmm.
carve your way by yourself.
Right.
And that's the problem. So they say that every action has a reaction.
Right. Right.
So I see the action is the system creating this mirage of individualism for the Black community or for the Black individual, to thinking that everything you do, you got to capitalize on your ability, and it's you by yourself.
Right.
And that's the action. The reaction is we got a lot of people that don't see the value in investing in our own community and our own people. No matter how much money you make, we don't have that, or we don't even have the people that's still in the community.
Right,
we see that we don't even have no camaraderie within the community.
Right.
I mean, we constantly got fight. You know, we fighting with each other, competing with each other. Who's the best? This, and even when we in the community are talking about people outside of our community that made it in some kind of entertainment business, it's always we're still pitting them against each other.
That's right.
Which
That's
one
right.
got it? One got to go. It's always some kind of fighting with each other.
Yeah.
You know, cannibalism.
Exactly. Individualism has basically done us a great number of disservice. And again, I keep hammering on the same thing, because you mentioned earlier, and I think this is something that we should talk about. We haven't been taught properly, but then there are some of us that have been taught.
Right.
And those are the ones who I'm talking about, because they know for a fact that this hurts us, but because they have so-called wealth, a little that they have, or because they have affluence, or they have a good job, or they think in their mind, Brother Kevin, they think that they're better than the rest of us. And so if I can show you that I don't need you, then I'm good. Whereas that's one of the most damaging type of mentality. But Kevin, you have to come to grips, and so do I. There are many people in our so-called race that have that idea, that mindset that I'm talking about, because they don't want to have anything to do. Look at the economics. You just mentioned it. Let's say, for example, if some of us said, let's start supporting Black businesses, the few that we have, that would help us out. And the Black businesses in turn would do something for the community. But a lot of people say, I'm not going to take my money to that end. I mean, this is the mindset. So individualism has really, it taints our thinking patterns, our thinking process. And I think we need to be the ones who kind of keep letting people know that, yeah, there's no really such thing as individualism, because you have to tie it into a social context. And until we do that, we're going to continue to think that we're better than other people, because that's what it boils down to. You know, you're better than me because you live in a certain location, or you have a certain car.
But see, I don't think that if we look at other groups, I don't think that when they come, I'm talking to immigrants, I don't think that they compete with each other like that. I think that they try to help each other. Even if we talk about some people in the Hispanic community, we'll say, man, they live all in this house together, and then they pay it off and I'm talking like a group of families. Then they go out and they'll buy another house, and then some of them will go over there and they'll do the same thing, and they're growing. But see, we don't have that camaraderie. That hasn't been embedded in us, in this country, you know. And that's what I say, the immigrants may, or you know, they do things like that. But with us, we don't see that necessity, and we fight with each other. We don't want to do things together, even if we have groups
Right.
that's trying to do something positive for the Black community.
Right.
And you have another group that has another way of doing something positive for the Black community. They will compete with each other.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, I mean, we see that in our leadership.
Right.
We see Martin and W.E.B. Du Bois, they had both the same goal, but the road was different of reaching that goal. And so they started fighting amongst each other.
Wow.
You know, we have Booker T and you know, going at W.E.B. Du Bois and like Malcolm and Martin, it started out that way.
Right.
You know, Malcolm was one way, Martin was another way.
Yeah.
And you'll see us competing like, oh, well, Martin versus Malcolm. Martin did this and Malcolm did this wrong, or you know, Elijah this and Malcolm, and none of, even though they have the same goals, it's always a competition.
Wow. And that's because no one has really instilled in us the importance of individualism poured into group dynamics. Because when you think about our ancestors and what they did, they had what is called group dynamics. They had to, because of the oppression.
Right.
So they gave us the key, so to speak, to at least take it a little further. And we took the key and dropped it and kicked it around. And because we wanted to be like other people, because everything we saw them do, we want to do. I think about the Negro League in the 1900s, the baseball league.
Right.
They wouldn't allow us to play baseball. So we formed our own Negro League baseball teams. And we had some of the highest attendance that you could imagine. But when Jackie Robinson went over to the European side, most of the Blacks who didn't care enough to see the damage that was going to do in the long goal, they all dropped one at a time the bats and went to the European aspect of it. And now you have what you have. And now we're complaining when they don't treat us a certain way.
Okay, but why did they do that? Let's talk about that.
They did that because from a psychological standpoint, there's many of us who want to actually be like other people, white people. They also wanted to get money. They want to be wealthy.
That's the big thing that I was talking about. That's the big thing.
And that's just it though, you know, but I think that these types of broadcasts, we need to continue to shed light on these series. This is a serious matter, because I've listened to social media, and I don't hear too many people talking about this subject, even though I know we can't get them all. But at the same time, this is really killing us as a people.
Okay. Now, the thing that I was talking about, the economics of it. See, when we have our own thing, brothers that we both know, Andar and Logic, they put out a movie, Walk on the River. And that movie about the history of Black San Antonio, how when segregation was imposed, we were strong as a community. And the places that didn't want us in their establishments downtown, they were talking about the Great Candy Shop in Woolworth. The Blacks weren't allowed. We had our own mom and pop things. Now the money is different. The demographics of money in this country has always been, you know, lopsided. So their establishment was nicer than ours. But soon as they opened the doors for us to be able to get in, we left our people and we left our mom and pop shops. That gave us strength. And even if you could say civil rights terms, we should be allowed to, but that don't mean flood the gates and leave everybody else behind. So those mom and pop places that we had, because the Woolworths and things like that was better, the white establishments was better, we left our places behind. So now, like you say, they treat us like they didn't want us there. They didn't hand us our change. They put it on the counter. A lot of times in the movie theaters, you could go, but you got to come in the back door, leave out the back door, and we got a section for you. So we'll take your money. We have no problem. We just don't want to sit with you. You know, we want your money, but we ain't gonna put it in your hand. We don't respect you. So instead of us saying, okay, that's cool, we got these rights, I could come in here if I want to, but let me give my money to my people.
When will we learn? When will we learn? Because nothing has changed really. Because we're looking at 2023, so-called 2024 on the horizon, and it's still the same relationships that our ancestors had with Europeans. We have the same relationship, and theirs was by force. Now ours may be jaded, but at the same time, we have to make conscious decisions if we want our children and our grandchildren and those that look like us if we want to put them in a better position. We've got to stop this nonsense of thinking that we're an island unto ourselves.
Right. So this is the point I was trying to make. For every action, there's a reaction. We're talking about the reaction. If the action is the reaction is negative, that we're complaining about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is hurting our culture.
Mm-hmm.
For every action, there's a reaction. For every reaction, there need to be an action.
Mm-hmm.
We need to form an action
Mm-hmm.
to go against the action that others have imposed upon us, and the reaction that we're having from it. We can do something about it, and we have to think about what we need to do about it. Now, like you say, it's happening today. I see that with the HBCUs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have our own black colleges
Mm-hmm.
because they wasn't allowing us to go into theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, our top scholars,
Mm-hmm.
all of our top athletes, which is making the most money for that university.
Right.
We have them wanting to leave our black colleges and go to these PWIs, and we're making them millions and millions of dollars, hands over fist.
Mm-hmm.
And our black colleges are starving for money, begging the government for money. If you have to beg somebody for resources, then they have power over you. They could tell you about your curriculum. Yeah, I could give you this $2 million,
right,
but this is what I don't like. Or this person y'all got on y'all school board, you know, I don't really like that person. He said some incendiary things as far as we're concerned in the white community.
Right, right.
So they're controlling. That we gave them control. We're giving them control, but we don't see it. Like our young people don't see it. A lot of our older people don't see it.
Right. That's right.
You know, that's the problem, because they have been bred in the system and impacted by the system.
Right.
Their mindset is Negropean, just individualism. And my kids should be able to go to the best place that they want to go to. And sometimes the best ain't better.
I got you. And one of the things I was thinking about as you were talking, Brother Kevin, is it's just that I think there's a key word here that we just don't seem to know what it's about. We talk about it, we sing about it, and but we don't do it. And that's sacrifice.
Right.
I don't think we as a people, by and large, I don't think we realize the sacrifices that were paid for us to turn around and do what we're doing now as a people, in spite of whether one had knowledge of it or not. We all know that we live in a race-based society. This country was started and founded upon racism, and this country will always be dealing with racism towards us. And yet we sometimes think that that's not really going on because we may have more access to certain things. But the bottom line is, until we learn the real meaning of sacrifice, because sacrifice to me is something that a lot of us really don't take time to sit back and say, what did these people do to put us in this position? And how dare that we give the very people that had the oppressive powers over us the same type of power to continue to treat us like dogs.
Well, I think they have a real nice plan. They have a real, and this is working. I mean, we have to admit that the plan is working. America is based on a fallacy. America is, land of the free, home of the brave. All men are created equal, and all the times that I was slaves, right. And if we weren't men, that's why we didn't fit into that dynamics, or whatever you want to call it. And they have fooled us. And we're not seeing the reality of what is actually, and we should be. Right. A lot of us didn't see the reality of it. That's why brothers on the wall that I have here, they wanted to make a statement for the world to see that everything in America is not what it appears to be. John Carlos and those brothers, they paid dearly for those statements that they were trying to make, to reveal, to pull the curtain back and say, look, we're still going through oppression here. Right. I'm running for this country, but I'm doing this stuff for this country. Right. I'm winning a gold medal for America, and America is still treating me like garbage, or my people like garbage. We're over here fighting a war and doing all these things, putting our life on the line for the country, for the flag. And then as soon as we go back, they still treat us like garbage. And it's been happening from World War I, from World War II, Vietnam, Korea War. It's still today.
Exactly.
And we get a little, benefits here and there, and we think we're making it, but it's slowly matriculating. But then we're not going to reach anything, because they're going to gain more. They're going to keep you at a certain place, no matter what. So we have to close ranks and have that mentality of closing ranks, but that's something that we don't have.
And it's going to be hard to close ranks when you have so-called people that call themselves leaders in the Black community, African-American community, who don't know a damn thing, who have sold out, many of them,
to the system.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's going to take grassroots movements that people who are willing to sacrifice and tell the truth like we're doing now, because until that truth is being shared about what's really going on, a lot of people think that this land is really a beautiful place for them because their mindset have been so conditioned, man. Their hearts, they're just, it's terrible.
The house Negro syndrome is
Yeah.
because they getting the scraps off of the master's table, and it's better scraps than they getting in the field.
Yeah.
But when you say that our leaders in our community, those leaders are put in our community because we're not raising those leaders up. Those leaders, those people that the so-called leaders, they are able to make it higher in the system because they are helping the system.
Right.
If you're a person, even if I go into any venue or sports, entertainment, whatever, if you speak a certain way, you're not going to be allowed to make it.
Okay.
Or make it too far, because the system will correct the situation that it feels it needs correcting. If you talk a certain way, an abrasive way about the system, then the system is going to react.
Right.
And they're going to put the leaders in place in our community to tell you that, okay, this person is a good person to run for mayor. He has these skins on the wall from this university and all these stuff, because that's in their system.
Right.
You know, Malcolm didn't go to anybody's university.
Right.
You know, Farrakhan didn't go to anybody's university. You know, so the way that they spoke, if we would raise them up, see, that's the problem. We have leadership that came, and we have leadership that we ignored because they were talking too militant.
Yeah, and then a lot of the leaders that we're talking about, these are pretty much yes men and yes women. They're patsies to Europeans. They have to watch what they say, and this is why I like doing these kind of broadcasts, because we don't have to watch what we say.
Right.
Well, in other words, what we're saying is for the people. We know that going into this thing. So there's nobody paying us to come from a political perspective or to just trying to get in good with people to take their money from them. But my sad woes is about our people, those who know. Those who don't know, okay, you can say I've been tricked, but come on, man. After 400 years, you're still telling me that you can pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, and that every other group of people that came here that did that, they didn't do that. They did it on the backs of our ancestors.
Now, what you just said, the people that I don't know how many people out of all the people I know, how many people even care about the things that you just said.
Yeah,
if you talk about our history, they're gonna look at it as like you giving a history lecture in class. Like they don't want to, and they live in here and they think things are different. That's that old stuff. That's my drunk uncle talking about, we used to be this and we used to be that. And a lot of these people, they may know about it, but they don't think it's relevant.
Well, a lot of people, Brother Kevin, I'm saying this. A lot of people, whether they know or not, I think everyone knows that the black man in America, we already know what has happened to us and what continues to happen to us. And it's almost like you're dealing with some people that are insane to continue to think for 1 second that we as people can come at this world individualistic and achieve the goals that we need to achieve as a group. And because the people that are in positions, and not only those, just the grassroots, those people who don't maybe haven't gotten a lot of information, they know what we're talking about is true. But I promise you, Kevin, they're going to still take their money and they're going to still give it to other people. And they're going to still think that they're doing something because they're individuals. And they're going to think that because I don't fool with you anymore, that I'm better than you. Right. And that's a sad epithet, but that's what we have. We have a 128. You want to open up the phone lines now?
If anyone wants to call in, our number is 361-405-6111 to the John Kev Show, and we'll take the calls online and let you express your feelings about.
I like this broadcast, man. I'm being biased, but I'm truthful because we don't look at each other's notes. We don't look at each other's study habits.
We haven't talked about this is all.
We throw the subject out there and we come at it, and I think that's how it should be. And I like the idea that it's fresh, it's new, and it's also challenging, but at the same time, it's stimulating. It's helping people realize that as a group, we're going to have to do something. And that's one of the things that you and I talked about earlier, that we're going to start different groups within the community to do things to help our people instead of depending on other social agencies, because we can do them ourselves.
Right. Now, I want to touch on something also. This So many people have it. I don't know if you have it or not. We say, well, these people that's making all this money, these celebrities, these athletes, these entertainers, they need to do this for the community. They need to do that for the community. A lot of people feel that and see that. But my thing is that is true. All of us need to have that mentality.
Mm-hmm.
But that mentality doesn't start because that person's making money.
Mm-hmm.
If I say Mike Tyson, Sugar Ray Leonard, Floyd Mayweather, if I'm bringing up any of those people,
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, they like, well, they making this much money, they need to do more. They need to do more. They need to be the gatekeepers or whatever. And my thing is that may be true. That'd be great. If I have to also look at things, turn the chessboard around.
Mm-hmm.
When they were kids, Mike Tyson came from poverty.
Mm-hmm.
He was a little, he had barely anything from his household.
Mm-hmm.
Living in the streets, nobody cared about him. That's part of what's creating the problem. Like I said, for every action, there's a reaction, and for that reaction, there needs to be an action.
Right.
If we want that camaraderie in our people, you have to be able to reach out to one another and show love to one another.
Yeah.
Because those people, those athletes, they're out there. If they started from humble means and they don't have the shoes on their feet, nobody in the community is providing anything for them. Nobody in the community is providing any kind of schooling for them or teaching them or helping them and saying, oh, my mom is on drugs and we had peanut butter sandwiches for dinner, and nobody is saying that situation we need to correct. So then when these people make it on their own without the help of the community, then we turn around and say, I want you, why aren't you helping us?
Right,
Why aren't you invest? Because they got money. That the money part of it should have nothing to do with them helping or us helping them and them helping us.
Right.
You can't ignore someone until they got money and then want them. You want a return on the investment that you didn't. That's economics. You get a return on your investments. If you're not investing in these kids and they don't have that us mentality, that we mentality, then you only want them to have that when they make money, then that's a problem.
Wow, that is true. And I want to piggyback off that and talk about the reality, because the reality is many people that have money, they're not helping us. It's just that simple. So I'm of the mindset, whatever we have, and I know it may not be much, and I'm a numbers guy as well, but I know that what we do have, the little that we have, if we supported one another, I think things would be a little bit better. I'm not going to say a lot, it'll be a little bit better. But when we have this mindset of individualism, where we don't want to fool with people that look like us because we think that we are, our own gods and that kind of thing, then that mentality is what's disrupting our growth, our progress. And a lot of it has to do with just people who know we need help. But instead of us sitting down and saying, well, Kevin, let's put a show together where we're not just going to talk behind microphones, but let's do something in the community. That's the application that I think is really lacking, because people talk a good game, but as James Brown said back in the day, a lot of us, we're talking loud, but we're not saying anything.
So what's going to make somebody that doesn't have the mindset and the mentality of the participants in the John Kev show, what's going to make them say, okay, yeah, brothers, I'm gonna go help cut grass and things like that?
You have to be serious. First of all, we're talking about men and women. We're not talking about little boys and little girls. And I'm not trying to belittle anybody's manhood or womanhood. I'm talking about people who in their hearts, Kevin, they know for a fact we are struggling. And so when you see these types of broadcasts and we're reaching out to them, we can't grab a fish hook and bring you in. This has to be something that's done sincerely, has to be done honestly, and it has to be done openly. So we can say what we want to say, but it goes back to the people that we're talking to. You know that your neighbor is elderly. You know the lady or the man, they can't. You see that no one comes and visits them, but you never take time out of your schedule to go see them, to see if there's a need or to actually do something. There's two ladies that live on my street. One of them can't hardly see, and the other lady, she's an elderly lady. I cut both of their grass, and I cut it every month. Every 2 weeks, every month. And you should see, they are so excited. I don't charge them a penny,
Right.
And so, damn it, how can I be talking about all this stuff on a broadcast when I won't get my lazy, what up, and do the very things that I'm saying? And that's not for accolades. That's because it needs to be done. And other people have ideas like you and I. They can take the same ideas that they have, that they know what's going on. They can contact us and they can say if they need some assistance, or they can do it by themselves. So it's basically a call to action. And that's what I'm trying to say. It's not about certain words that's going to make people join us. It's you have to be serious about life, man.
And that goes back to what I was talking about. Individuality, we're going to have that in the Black community because we're diverse people. We have different beliefs, backgrounds, um, religious beliefs, political beliefs, whatever. Me and this brother, our thing is we have the same mindset about our goals for our community. That don't mean like, hey, you got to be this religion, you got to have this beliefs. All that's the secondary because I'm an individual, he's an individual, but we're getting together to do something together for a common goal. This is how the Black community needs to be in the mindset that they need to have instead of saying, okay, we got this group, the John Kevin, they trying to do this, but we're trying to do this too, and it's a competition. No, that the more of us that could do it, that's great.
Right.
And I'm gonna commend them. Hey, man, y'all got this group over here. They over here doing this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give them big ups, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
And because I'm not in competition with them.
What can we do to support you? That's the mindset. But again, Brother Kevin gave the number out. And again, we're not begging for calls, but this subject is very touchy. It's hot. And a lot of us out here listening to this, that your mindset is probably one of that. You want to be by yourself. You want to be left alone. You don't want to be bothered. You feel like you can do things on your own. We need you to call us at the 361-405-6111. And let's talk about how individualism has basically killed the African-American community in cities all across the country.
You can't have a village with a bunch of individuals.
Right.
Everybody in the village, that proverbial village, they had a job to do within that village. That doesn't mean that you have to close your back on America and not believe in it and don't watch this and don't do that. But I'm saying you got to have that village mentality.
Yeah.
We have to put that village mentality into our kids.
True.
I know you deal with kids and they do things, and it's like if the community don't support them, then it's like one of your kids grow up to be the next superstar, pop star, but they didn't get anyone helping them but the people at your academy. And the community was like not caring about them and not investing in them. And then one of them make it big and make all this money, then they like, well, you need to give back. But why'd you didn't give to me when I was asking?
Right.
Those same people, the same thing you did with the elderly people on your block. If we do that with younger people and show them that we care, then they would probably be returning the favors when they get older. They'll see a value in our people that, my people care for me. For what reason? Why did this person come over here and ask me if I needed shoes on my feet or do I need a new jacket when it's cold? Because you Black.
Right.
And I care about you because you Black.
Wow.
So then they may, return that, and with that, the main return is in their mindset.
Okay.
That's the main thing.
Well, we do have a call. Go ahead and let the caller say what's on their mind. Thank you for calling the John Kev Show. Go ahead and tell me what's on your mind.
You guys are doing a good job as always. And yes, I was getting frustrated listening to you guys from the aspect of not you, just us as a whole, Blacks. Okay. Individualism has gotten so bad. I really think we're too far gone to the standpoint of this. We were taught, and I don't want to always say from the media, but through magazines and TV shows, that if you need help, don't ask for it. People will rather starve than ask for help because they think it's a weakness. And then on top of it, we think individualism is once we make what we make, screw everybody else. Don't care about them. And let's only start a revolution when it affects me and my household. I get angry when I hear this from, especially in barbershops or just everywhere where everybody's just, they don't care until it affects them. But then when it affects them, they want to start everything. And I think, fellas, we're just too far gone from the African American community to actually want to stop this individualism. It's so destructive, and it's not. And I know I'm kind of all over the place, but it's not to take a pot shot at the sisters, the African American sisters. It's to a point with them where they're saying they don't need a man, they don't need this independent. It's just a totally warped mindset, and I just think we're too far gone.
Okay, thank you for the call, brother.
All right, I appreciate the call too, brother. It's a lot of anger, I guess, in that call. Some of the things I do understand, but I would never reach for a platitude of saying things are too far gone, or I can't help the world, or anything like that. And what a platitude is those cliche sayings that does nothing for you actually. So we will grasp those things and say we're too far gone. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna say we're too far gone. So what? We don't need to have the John Kev show. You know what I'm saying? We can't have that it's too far gone mentality, because then where are you gonna go if who you gonna help?
Well, I think you can do both at the same time, because I think we can be honest, because if we're honest with ourselves, we are in a bad situation. And a lot of times, like with Barack Obama and other people who gave us this fake false hope, we fall for that. So my thing is, we can be honest about it. It is far gone. Now, too far gone.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Too far gone. And that means you can't.
Well, you can always, I think Frederick Douglass said it best. We're going to always, without progress, there's always going to be without struggle. There's going to always be a struggle with us. So I think sometimes people, they may say that, but I think when you look at what they're going to do, and everybody's just like you and I, we know that it's really far gone, but we're still going to do what we have to do. Exactly. So sometimes people have to vent and let us know, because when I was growing up, I would say some of the damnedest things, but I didn't really mean it. It was just that I was frustrated. Right. And the bottom line is, I feel the same way that brother feels when it comes to, at some point in time, sometimes I'll throw my hands up, but I'm still going to keep going. And I'm sure most people are as well. But it's just that we have to call a spade. And right. It's the mindset that he was dealing with. And that's what I'm looking at. It's the mindset of people who looking at this broadcast, who know that they can do something, but they won't do it. So I think that's
so. And I think good. That's the hindrance when you say anything is too much, too far. Malcolm X saw the condition of our people. Our people was in I think pretty much a worse condition back then. And he didn't say it was too far for me to, why am I even doing this? Those brothers put in work. And that's why I'm saying the too far thing.
I hear what you're saying.
I don't believe. Don't say, just say like we know we're in bad shape. That's why we're doing this. That's why we're trying to. So my thing is, for the reaction that you're reacting to, that's the reaction of the action, the system. They're creating this, and a lot of us are creating this, like he brought up the sisters with their attitude, their independent attitudes. A lot of these men got independent attitudes because you would go out and make a baby and you still on your own and you don't even see the family. That's the basic is having a family. And we got a lot of these, we got the highest number of any group of single parent households. And we got a lot of mothers that's taking care of these single parent households. So when these women come up with this attitude, well, I could do it because they've been doing it for their damn self. So I mean, you can't just say, well, I'm gonna point at the women or I'm gonna say, look at this. I mean, look at all of it and look at what are we doing to stop the system from creating this individualism? Are we creating our own schools?
Right.
Some of us that's doing that, are they getting support from the community?
Yeah, not
much. We don't see anything. We have to look at what we need to do and what have we done, and it's not enough. If we're complaining to that point, then that's not enough that we've done.
Right. Well, like I said, I get what the caller is saying, because I can feel the frustration, and I do understand exactly what they're saying. But I know that doesn't mean that we're going to throw our hands up. But I think at some point in time, it's like all of us have gotten to that point where we look at life or something in our lives, and we make a statement. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to help. And it's like, it's terrible. It's even worse than what you and I are talking about. We're just giving you a tidbit of what's really going on with that mindset. But I think a lot of people have to come back and see what's really going on and then respond to do something about it. But if the brother is saying that he's never going to do anything, which he didn't say, but if that's his mindset, then you're right. We can't have that mindset.
And it's just the verbiage of too much. It's too much. If anything's too much for me, that means I can't handle it. Yeah, we can handle it. Brother, be positive. But you know what? I'm gonna correct this. If I see an issue with our sisters, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna work on our sisters. I'm gonna do something positive. I'm not gonna just condemn them and say that they're just this and that. If you can't do that with a kid. You can't do that and say, you know what, this kid is just too damn bad. And no, that I got work to do. You know, that's what I'm saying.
We got another call coming in. Go ahead, caller. Thanks for calling the John Kev Show. What's on your mind?
Yes, thank you so much for this topic that you're speaking on. I was just thinking back, like doing our grandparents and our great-great-grandparents, they had a community. They worked together. If somebody needed something, they were there. And they may not have had much, but it was a community thing where they would make sure the elderly was taken care of. and everyone was, in that community was taken care of. And even in my growing up, on the east side, it was a community thing, and everybody knew everybody. And then when they built what they call Willow Woods, that's when your blacks left where I live at over to Willow Woods homes, because they were new homes, they were 2-story homes and all that. And another thing I think too is that when we segregated, and that might be another topic, but when we segregated, and it wasn't that all black, the black teachers with the black students, when we segregated, and even when they segregated the teachers, I think a lot of that individualism probably came into effect, because now we wanted what they have. And we could have it. And like you were saying earlier about the Asian people, where are the Asian people? They're on the east side, because they know black folks is going to go to them. How come we can't have a black beauty supply store owned by black people? So it's like we don't try to help one another. And as far as the school system, you're right. They say they don't like what their kids are learning, but they're still putting them in there. And so then they want to know, well, why come my child is, acting out? Well, first of all, is what they're being taught. You're not being involved in their lives, probably. And so it's just a whole lot of, like you say, individualism. And how do you get that back? Or is it too far gone? Or could it ever come back? Because the way you see things now, it's all about me, myself, and I. So how can a community, can it come back together? Because now your communities are mixed now. You have Hispanics, you have blacks living together. So, and even with the Hispanic, they even work with themselves. They got all these restaurants, family owned, and all this kind of. How come we can't do that? How many soul food places do we have? We had I think it was Mr. and Mrs. G's. They shut down because of COVID, and they wouldn't get in the business. So how many so-called black soul food owned soul food restaurants do we have here in San Antonio? And do we support them? So it's just a lot of individual, and I'm done.
Okay, I appreciate the call. You covered a lot there. And
I know.
One thing that you brought up when you talk about the Hispanics culture, they went through the same thing that we went through when we talking about integration. And the thing that they didn't do was start ignoring their own places just because they had a card, the green card, no pun intended, or to be able to go into a white establishment. Okay, I can go in here and I can do something, but I'm still going back to my community. And you go on the west side of San Antonio, South side, you see a lot of their places because they patronize, they have a culture. Now the other part of that is they do have a culture.
Wow.
We don't really like she brought up soul food. Okay, is that the only thing that we do? What about dry cleaners? What about now it's black banks? Now, like, see, a lot of us are saying this, and I'm gonna say this: I got my money in a black bank too. I have my money in another bank, but I also I got money in a black bank. I buy black products. I wash my clothes with black or black laundry detergent. I got black dishwashing liquid. I got light bulbs by a black company. If you go on We Buy Black, you could find a lot of black products, but many of us won't even do that. That's the least. It takes nothing to just say, well, you know what? I want to buy black. That's where it starts at. If you want to invest in your kids' future, and I ain't talking about monetarily, in their mindset, let them know, hey, we're going to go to this black store. We're going to go buy these black products because this is helping us. And we don't even do that, but we complain about this utopia that we want, but that utopia starts with one brick at a time, and we have to at least do the small things.
Wow. Well, I want to say something profound about one sentence she made at the outset of her speech. She said that when she was growing up, she said that everyone knew everyone, and that because the community was forced in a sense. But I think right now, to her point, we don't want to know each other. We have neighbors that are Black, African American. We don't want, see, back in the day, my mama used to go next door and ask people like for butter or for bread. And then when we got ours, we got our stamps, we would repay them with syrup or whatever. But she was never too proud to go and talk to her neighbors. If somebody moved in the community, not being nosy, but because she had compassion and she didn't want to be an individual. She knew that whole idea of the village mindset. But like the sister said, back in the day, we knew each other. But now when a person moves in, we're going to stay as far away from them as we can. And to me, that goes back to what we're talking about, because a lot of us, and not that we got to give everything to a person, and we don't know who's moving next to us. But come on, man, I can't speak to you. I see you every day, and I can't say, "How you doing, brother?" I mean, you fixing your flat, you need help. You're next door. You haven't. See, this is what is lacking.
But why?
Well,
why do you think it come to that?
I think a lot of people, when it comes to not being this village mentality, a lot of us, our minds have been taken from us. We've been conditioned, and a lot of us don't give a damn. And we think that this dog world because we've been treated this way growing up. And so we see all the things that have happened in this world, and we look at each other as suspect. And a lot of us don't have the love, brother. It's love that we should have for one another, in spite of our social condition, in spite of our political takes, in spite of our religious ideologies. We don't do that.
Okay, I'm gonna read a comment off of the Facebook page.
Okay,
right? And we have I appreciate Sharon and a couple of y'all that's on the Facebook. Coretta, Teresa Lewis said that she said we have been brainwashed to believe that what they have is better. Their schools and their neighborhoods are better than we have. And I wanted to read that because it's going to be something I want to say. The transitioning that the caller was talking about, and that you're talking about, how it used to be, what happened. And the reason I was saying why, because the enemy, your oppressor, has a great game plan. It's not like it's just happening. They put the drugs in our neighborhood. They put the guns in our neighborhood. They made us worried about our neighbors' kids and our neighbors. And then you have people that's going to take up for their kids. So now you have all this corruption and dysfunction going on in your neighborhood. So I don't really know if I could trust you. I don't know. It's not like I'm just going to go and, all these killings and things like that. They tore away at the fabric. Of that community. So you look at everything that is happening, you have to ask yourself why. And a Socratic questioning, you have to say, okay, this is what's happening, but why is it happening? If you attack the why, then you can go a long way as correcting the issue. If you gotta understand all the things that we've been through, all the murders and the blood that was in our streets, our communities was in shambles. We are rebounding from that, and this is the after effects of that. Every action, there's a reaction. Now we don't feel that tight-knit community. It may have been going that way at one time, and maybe that's what the enemy saw and said, we got to do something about this.
Well, see, and then I have to push back on that to say, I agree with what you're saying, but here's my take on it. If I know what you just said is to be true, and it is true, like the sister's commenting, we know these things. So this is not anything new. This has been going on ever since we've been in this damn country. So for people to think that this is new, our ancestors, they had the same issues that we had with racism, the things that they tried to get them to do, not to do, the way the system, the laws that were made. I mean, in other words, what I'm saying, it wasn't the exact same laws, but basically all they did was they moved the goalposts. But the point I'm trying to make is Black people in the United States of America, I don't care what you've been through, you know that you live in a racist society. You live in a racist country. So if I know that, when I see you, brother, I know that your problems are my problems. So this is one of the things that I'm going to see when I see you. I'm going to speak to you. I'm going to see you trying to fix a flat, struggling. I'm going to say, hey, man, I live next door. Let me help you. I'm going to help you with that flat. And so since I know that, I'm going to do my due diligence as a person that knows that racism is so tough. And if you say, hey, well, brother, I'm struggling. I need $25-$50. I'm going to loan you if I have it. See, and if you never pay me back, I'm not going to fall out with you over that.
Right.
Because that is how systems have to be built. They have to be built from, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to show you that as a Black man, we cannot live in this country and be individuals like we are. We're going to perish. And that's what's going on now.
Now, okay. So I'm gonna go back into you saying our ancestors were going through maybe something similar but different. One thing that they had, there was no place to run. You had segregation, so you had a black community. You couldn't pick and choose which side of town you was gonna go into. You see what I'm saying? So if they didn't like their neighbors, so what? If something was happening in the black community, it was happening to all of them. And we are spread out all over the place. The ones that's left behind is the ones that can't get from up under each other. That's what's happening. Or you have a few of us that see the value in our community. But those that can do something for themselves or feel like they can do something for themselves, they move out and then they look at the rest of us differently. You could still be in the black community and not even live in the black community, because if you go over there and spend your money in the black community, then you're helping the black community. I don't even have to go out and buy dishwashing liquid from True, because I'm getting it online. Right. I don't have to. The bank I'm talking about is in Atlanta, is in Georgia. The black bank. It don't have to be one here in my community or in my city, because I'm reaching out to it, because I'm trying to reach out to my community. And what I'm saying is we got a lot of people that's in our community that's been affected and infected. So we're talking, we're upset about the reaction that's happening, but we have to look at the action. If we go camping and we say, you know what, it's rattlesnakes out there. A rattlesnake bit somebody and killed them. Okay, that's the reaction of us meeting rattlesnakes in camping, is somebody could die or you could get bit. What's the reaction going to be to the action that happened? We could say, okay, we're going to try to get rid of all the snakes. We know the snakes are out there. If we say, well, that's not even plausible. We can't get rid of the system. We can't affect the system or the snakes out there. But what we could do is either come up with ways to circumvent them, so where we're not interacting, or to keep the snakes away. And we say, this is what we can do. You got to do something to correct the system or correct the problem. And that's what I'm saying. For every reaction, there has to be another action to correct. If you don't like what the system has created in our communities, then change it, do something. We got to come up, instead of we complaining about it and we say how it used to be, that's fine. But what are we going to do to check? Because we're talking about people that's been coming up in the school system, that in communities that were crack infested. When they put crack in our neighborhoods, then you had a bunch of crack babies. You had a bunch of people that lost their loved ones to another black person. So now they're going to look at black people differently. That's what I was getting to. When they did all this stuff to our neighborhood, the chemical warfare, it had a bad toll on a lot of these kids coming up. So now they don't trust the next black person. You may be the person that killed my uncle. You may be the person that sold crack to my mother. So they don't see that bond and that love to be like, hey, how you doing, brother? We don't, that's a natural thing. Let me read a couple of more comments, because we're getting comments on Facebook. Jesse, hotel brother, I appreciate you showing up. He said facts when we're talking about the Hispanics and things like that. He said the West and the South side keep the food and certain businesses within ourselves. I support black businesses, and I tell other Raza to do the same, because we're catching the same hell from white people. And he's a Hispanic brother that's saying that. And Jay Harris said, Jay Hartz, I'm sorry, brother. He said, each one teach one. Each one help one, each one support one. If we could start with those small steps, we could gradually get further. We have to have great expectations for one another. And another comment, this is the last one I'm gonna read right now. Karen, she said, when I was a kid and I was growing up, I didn't know which of my neighbors were family or not. I was taught to respect all my elders and address them as aunt and uncle. Our birthday parties, holiday celebrations, weddings, as well as moments of grief. Let me see what else. She said, we were always taught camaraderie. She said, I grew up in the low income area and had no idea. Now that I'm an adult, I appreciate my childhood values installed in me, and I see the breakdown. I appreciate those comments.
Okay, this is what I want to say. Those are wonderful comments. Here's what I want to do now. We have an email address. And if we can give that email address to the people that are concerned, because you're talking about for every action, there's a reaction, and that's true. Well, we see some of the things that's going on and we bring them to light. So why don't they email us, and then we'll continue to contact them. And when we have things going on that we need them to be involved in, we will, get in touch with them and see if they want to help us because that's where it starts. So for those who are commenting, for those who are calling, for those who are concerned, for those who are pissed off, for those who are angry, this is where I think you were talking about. This is some of the things that we have to start doing. Okay, what are we going to do about it?
Right.
So can we give that information out so they could just email us? The John Kev is at gmail.com.
Yeah, John Kev.
John Kev, is it just John Kev?
We'll get that for y'all next time.
Yeah, because we definitely want to we want to have a group of people, man, that's not just like you said. We're talking about, we don't want to come on this broadcast every few weeks and talk about an issue and not have some kind of resolve.
Now, in fairness to some of the people that was commenting on Facebook, some of them are in organizations and doing their own thing.
Okay, but if
they don't have to, if you're interested, then do
that's
that.
all we can do.
I know some of the people, and sometimes, like I said, we're all trying to do things. We're all trying to do things. But some of the things that I hear a lot of people complaining about, and that was my litmus test for a lot of people, a lot of Black people that were saying this. And I asked them, who do you bank with? You know, if you go to church, who does your church bank with? Talk to them, because that's the biggest money making thing in the Black community. Tax free is the church. And I asked them who they bank with. If you give, that's power. That's Powernomics that Dr. Claude Anderson was talking about. That's a great book, Powernomics in the Black community. We have to understand the keeping money in house thing is vital to our having a strong community. Because we could talk about buying stuff from Black businesses, and then if it's just like buying stuff from businesses in your neighborhood. If you're buying it from an Asian business, like they were saying earlier, they're in our neighborhood, they're not living there with us, and they're not hiring. You going, it's not a bunch of Black people working in there.
Right.
Even if I talk about the Mexican restaurants in the neighborhood, they have Mexican people working there. You know, maybe they need them to be bilingual. But if you're in the Black community and you're somebody that's not Black, and it's like they're in there, so what you're doing, you're taking money out. Now, some of the people, if you're going to live in our neighborhood, if we had a Black supermarket, if we had Black gas stations, if we have Black dry cleaners, and then you say, well, I'm working in this environment, I'm living in this environment, or if I'm not, even if I'm not, I'm still coming to work, and I'm gonna drop my car off at this Black mechanic, I'm gonna get my clothes dry cleaned at this Black establishment. You're keeping the money in house. But if you're not, even if you're Black and you're in our community, and we're going to your establishment because you're Black, and you living on the other side of town, and then you're taking your dry cleaner to another person, an Asian person, and you're buying food from this meat market that ain't Black, then all you doing is taking resources out of the community.
And that was exactly what I was going to say, that I agree with everything you just mentioned about supporting another. But I think there's two sides to this story, because I'm not saying it's happening all over, but we have to also look at the idea of, we're going to support you. But I think if we support you, then we should have in return something that's reciprocal, because that's what we're doing it for. We want you to be successful, but damn it, we want to be successful too. So I'm not going to give you my money because you look like me. And that's one of the issues that we need to do a broadcast on in the future. But the bottom line is it's twofold. It's not just one. And I know we don't have time to get into that. That's a whole nother subject. But you got a grocery store and you just started. Okay, your meat is not up to par. Okay, and now 6 months later, your meat is still not up to par. 2 years later, your meat is still not up to par. And yet, you saying buy black. Okay, so but I get what we're saying. The thing that I'm trying to say is, if those people that are radical, that really want to make a difference, we have to begin somewhere. I do a school, man, with students, and it's
Liberation Academy.
Yeah, Liberation Academy. We're looking for 4-year-olds. Anyone that has a young boy or nephew or relative that's 4 years old or so, give us a call. Let us know what's going on, because we really want to recruit them.
How can they call you?
Well, you can call us at 210-317-4575 and just leave your name, message, and we'll reach back out to you.
What type of curriculum?
It's an Afrocentric curriculum that talks about the importance of being who you are and loving who you are. It's a curriculum that has the basics as far as the subjects that most people get into, the science, math, language, but we take it a step further because it's from an Afrocentric perspective. We talk about those things that they're going to have to survive, learn how to survive with.
And y'all get out there in nature too. I've seen the videos you posted live.
They love nature, because when we talk about science, we connect that, because we're all a part of nature. Right. So these are the things that we must continue to do.
And I'm glad you said that, part of nature. See, that's why I was talking about the individualism culturally. We, the Native Americans, and when I say Native Americans, I'm talking about the Mexican people. They're Native Americans also. and the Africans and then indigenous people to different lands, they had a connection with nature. That European came and you see what they do with their corporations. They care nothing about the ecosystem. They stripping the resources. That is something that we start. You can't let culture assimilation kill us. Being like them will kill us. We have to reconnect with nature, reconnect with each other. I know the caller said something about why we can't have our own Black beauty supply stores and things like that. We had that. I used to give that sister all kind of advertising.
What happened?
She ended up closing down. It wasn't to support. We complain about it, and it was a young sister, like probably in her 20s. She opened up the first Black beauty supply here in San Antonio on the east side, or Eisenhower area.
Okay.
And it ended up closing. And I would go in there. I don't have hair, and I buy hair products.
Right,
I'm trying to do something to support. And I would go there and say, I'm gonna spend a certain amount of money, even if I bought it and told her put it back on the shelf and resell it. Or sell it at a half price so people could say, man, they got this at a great price, or sell it in combination with something else you could sell. You already made the money off everything I bought. I say, give me a product. What's the product? And she'll say, well, this is give me all of it.
Well, I think the sister that commented, she hit the nail on the head, and she talked about the mindset, the mentality.
Right.
And until we deal with that mindset, we're going to continue to be like, animals, like dogs chasing our tail that we'll never catch it, because that's where it starts. But at least we're open and honest enough to put it out on the table so that people can see this is a problem, bro.
Yeah. Why we don't have it is because we don't support it. Why we don't support it is because we gotta, learn. We gotta engrave, put that in our minds. Ingrain that into our kids' mind. Like I say, you start with kids. You could start with someone older and try to do what you do, but like I said, start with the kids and get that mentality. That becomes a culture. Collectivism is the opposite of individualism. And we got to have that collectivism culture in our Black community.
Wow. Well, we about ready to get out of here. We're a little bit over time, but it's like a sporting event. When you go in overtime, they get excited. So get excited about the John Kev Show, because we're definitely coming to you every first and third Saturday at 1 o'clock until we change the time. But we appreciate all of you who have participated, and we want you to take to heart this message that we're dealing with about individualism, and don't allow that to be an Achilles heel to you, where you're not successful, you're not able to help people that look like you, and you're not willing to sacrifice, because that's what it's going to take. Any last words, Raquel?
Yeah, subscribe to our channel. If y'all like what y'all hearing, tell somebody about it, get them to subscribe. And John Kev Show, and hopefully y'all could catch us and participate. We're looking for callers, and what we'll try to do, we'll try to put the subject out there beforehand so people will be prepared to say, okay, you know what, I want to do this, and I kind of dropped the ball. I didn't advertise it earlier until like 5 minutes before the show, but we'll advertise it and probably advertise the subject that we're going to talk about.
What a real brother to announce his faults as opposed to trying to cover him up. We out of here. This is the John Kev Show. We thank you once again.
Peace.
Ow.